Good morning, everybody. Hope you are doing well this morning. Hope you all enjoyed the past couple of warm days that we've been having. And let's see what's in store for us. Hopefully, same good news that we were getting last time. All right. It is currently 31 degrees in the great metropolis of Brandon, Iowa. Feels like 35 or 30 if you're in the shade. Air quality is fair. Friday evening there will be some snow, but it won't amount to anything. Today's forecast, a high of 37 with some possible morning rain or some snow. Tonight, a low of 23. Tomorrow, a high of 41 with some mixed rain and snow tomorrow evening. Look farther ahead. Saturday has a high of 45, and Sunday has a high of 39 for the last day of February. Moving on forward, Monday high of 44, Tuesday a high of 45, Wednesday a high of 42, and look at that, Thursday a high of 48 for a week from today. So we will have warmer days are coming. Maybe the groundhog was wrong. Ha 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 ha. Back to me, and we can close that. Well, our devotional is the Journey to the Cross version of 24 Hours That Changed the World. The last week, we've been looking at the Last Supper. And so beginning with this week now, we will look into the Garden of Gethsemane. And so this is the intro to week 2. After leaving the upper room, Jesus led his disciples east and then north on the road that ran along the Kidron Valley. On their right, facing Jerusalem, were the tombs of priests, prophets, and ordinary people. That valley represented the place where all the nations of the earth would one day be gathered to be judged by the one who, on this tragic night, led his disciples along this dark road. Surely this fact would not have been lost on Jesus. At the Last Supper, Jesus had predicted that one of his disciples would betray him. Now, as he waited with his friends, Jesus predicted that all of them would desert him. This prediction captures one aspect of the grief Jesus experienced that night. He knew Judas had already sold him out for 30 pieces of silver and would soon betray him with a kiss. He knew the disciples would all desert him, fleeing to protect their own lives. He knew that Peter, despite his protestations to the contrary, would deny even knowing Jesus. The experience of being betrayed, deserted, and denied by his closest friends, this would produce great sorrow in anyone. It was doubly true for Jesus because these were his closest companions, people who had been with him for 3 years, who saw him work miracles and heard him preach. I am strangely grateful that the gospel writers included this information rather than glossing over what was surely an embarrassing testimony concerning the disciples. The very fact that they failed the Lord helps me trust that there is grace yet for me when I deny, desert, and betray him. So much happened in these few hours in that garden: prayer, disappointment, anguish, submission, betrayal. Sometime between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning, Judas arrived in the garden, leading those sent by religious authorities to arrest Jesus. By taking Jesus at night, the authorities avoided the potential of an uprising against them. Jesus knew the arrest was coming. He even knew that his friend Judas would betray him. He not only anticipated the disciples' desertion, he also foretold their restoration, as we see in Mark 14:28. But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee. He would take them back despite the fact that they would forsake him, and if he did it for them, he certainly will do it for me and you. As the arrest unfolded, Peter drew a sword in anger and struck the ear of the priest's servant. But Jesus, on the eve of his own crucifixion, paused to heal a man sent to arrest him. After the arrest, Jesus was bound by a club-wielding band, and he was shackled. The disciples took flight. Only Judas remained. Jesus had been betrayed with a kiss, and then deserted by his friends, and his suffering was only beginning. Day 8. A song of praise in the face of death. And our scripture is Mark 14:26. When they had sung the hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. The Last Supper likely concluded sometime just before midnight. Jesus had broken bread with the disciples, washed their feet, predicted Judas's betrayal, and taught the disciples the final lessons he wanted them to learn before his death. Now he was preparing to lead them across the Kidron Valley to the Garden of Gethsemane, where he knew he would be arrested. The end was drawing near. Yet there was one last thing he and his disciples did at the supper before beginning the journey to Gethsemane. They sang a hymn together. The hymn that traditionally closes the Passover Seder, and hence the hymn that Mark likely refers to this in this passage, is Psalm 118. The hymn begins and ends with the words, "Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever." The psalm is an invitation to trust God even in the face of enemies that would destroy. With the singing of these words, Jesus prepared himself and his disciples for what lay ahead. Singing praise to God in the face of adversity is an act of defiance toward evil. It is also an act of trust in God, one that gives strength, peace, and hope. By singing praise to God in the face of hardship or even death, we are saying, no matter what happens, no matter how bad things may be, I will trust in God to deliver me. As Jesus approached his death, he sang a hymn of praise to God. The apostles followed this practice. In Acts 16, we read that Paul and Silas had been flogged by the authorities in Philippi and then cast into a dungeon, their feet in shackles. But Acts records, about midnight Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God. From their prison cell, as the other prisoners listened. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 16 through 18, Paul instructs us to rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances. Jay was a man about my age, and he has been battling cancer. He had been released from the hospital recently, and it was becoming clear that the treatment would not be successful. Because he was weak from both the cancer and the treatment, I was utterly astounded when I saw Jay walk into worship Sunday morning. It was Easter, and Jay was not going to miss Easter worship. That was the last time he came to church. Several weeks later, he died, but I will never forget the image of Jay singing, praising God, and being surrounded by his church family on that day. As Jesus approached his own death, he sang a hymn with his disciples. Take a moment to read the words of the hymn Jesus probably sang that night, and then reflect on what those words would have meant to Jesus at the time. Sometimes it can be hard in the face of adversity to sing hymns in praise of God and praise of Christ. Sometimes we might feel that we might even try to blame him for some things that really aren't his fault. And it's hard when life feels like everything's falling apart to find something to be joyful in. When I was in kindergarten, I read the book Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. And every page of the book, Alexander, something goes wrong with Alexander. Something just happens that day, and he figures maybe he'll move to Australia to escape these horrible days, because it seems like everything's just, his life is now worthless because of all these horrible little things. I don't remember the specifics. I think he gets yelled at by his mom about something. He has a bad hair day. It's just one of those things. And at the end of the book, his mom, as she's tucking him in, tells him that, well, you had a bad day, but tomorrow might be better. And people have bad days. People will always have bad days, even in Australia. And if you've seen some of the wildlife down there in Australia, Oh boy. Um, but we do have bad days. And it can be hard to find things during those bad days to be thankful for or to give praises for. And so when we have those bad days, I think we need to remember this passage. When Jesus knows what's awaiting him and yet still sings a hymn with his disciples, with the same people he knows are going to abandon him in a few short hours. And so when we try to find things to be thankful for, try to find things to respond with praise and joy, we might be surprised what we come up with and how that can better our own mindset. So the next time you're having a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day, don't try to run away to Australia. Trust me, they've got animals there that look like they're from Mars or something. Instead, look at what might be cause for praise. It'll be hard and it will feel anti-intuitive, if that's even a word. But when you try to look for something good, you'll be amazed what you can find. I know trying to think on something positive is the last thing you want to do when you're having a bad day, but just try it. What's the worst that could happen? That's all I have for us today. I thought I had something to tell you, but I can't remember what it was. Maybe I'll remember tomorrow. Who knows? Except I'm pre-recording tomorrow. Just a reminder that tomorrow's will be pre-recorded, and there will be a Saturday version during Lent to cover the 40 days for the Lent devotional. So enjoy the warm weather as it approaches, and I will see you all next time. Have a good day, everybody.